Welcome to A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to My Life. This is the place to be for stories to inspire and uplift when life doesn't go according to our plans. I'm Laura Muirhead, your host and the reigning queen of A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to My Life. I can't wait to share the plot twist stories of my guests that will inspire and uplift you when life didn't follow the plan, right here on A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to My Life podcast. Hello and welcome to this episode of A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to My Life. I'm your host, Laura Muirhead, and I am so happy to welcome today as my guest, Bella Luna. Hi, Bella. Come and introduce yourself and tell us where in the world you are and what you do.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Bella Luna. I'm currently in London, UK. I've just moved back here from Thailand about 3 weeks ago before recording this episode. And so I am a spiritual life coach, a self-love advocate. I do many other things. And my most recent thing that I've started doing is I've become a domestic violence mentor. So I also do like soul plan readings and chakra dancing and mindful meditation and, just all sorts of bits and bobs. But I'm I'm just a down to earth, witchy, wild woman at heart. And I'm really excited to be here on this podcast today.
Oh, thanks so much. I love what you do. And we do, just for our listeners, we do know each other a little bit because of social media and some different groups that we've been in. So I know a bit about your story. We are also co-authors of the book Entangled No More, which is coming out next week. But yeah, I've been following your journey a bit, but I haven't gotten to hear all the details. So let's talk about what your A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to My Life story is that you'd like to share today.
So I guess there's sort of two parts that make up this story. The beginning part and then the end part are sort of the two sort of funny things, I think. But it all starts on a very serious note of being in an abusive relationship. So that's where the sort of beginning of my journey starts off. And this is back in around 2008 to 2010. And then once I sort of broke free of this relationship, it was really the journey that unfolded from that trauma, from that that experience that happened to me, that led me on a real journey of self-discovery, exploration. I mean, up until this point, I really had never thought about who am I, what am I doing, what's my purpose? Like, I'd never really thought about those sort of bigger existential questions before, not much more than, after having read Harry Potter and things like that, and, wishing that, maybe someone would come along and say, hey, you're a witch, Bella, here's your invitation to Hogwarts. So I was asking myself all these questions, like, who am I now that I don't have someone telling me who to be, what to do, what to wear, what to say, where to go, and all of those sorts of things. So it was this real journey of intense self-discovery, exploration, figuring things out, learning who I was. And then in that process of learning who I was, it was impossible to then not accept who I was, right? So once you're faced with, this is who I am, there's no hiding from it anymore. There's no pretending, oh, well, maybe I could be this person. It's like, well, no, you figured out who you are. This is who you are. You just have to accept it. And then that level of self-acceptance is really what led me on to loving myself, and the journey of self-love that has brought me to where I am today. So after I did some traveling. I went to uni. Went traveling. I had jobs, this, that, and the other. All those little mini lives you have within this one big life, and that led me to really wanting to become, a spiritual life coach. I really wanted to help people. I really wanted to give back. I really wanted to give back some of the lessons that I'd learned myself, and give these gifts back to the world and to whoever could benefit from them and need them. And after being in my business for a couple of years, I was just feeling a little unsatisfied, and I was like, I don't really feel like I'm doing as much as I could. So I asked the universe. I sat there and I said to the universe, right, I think it was probably not too long after being into Joanna Hunter's world, which is how Laura and I know each other. And I was thinking about my clients, my client journey. What do they really need? Not what do I want to give them, but what do they really need? What's the juicy stuff that they need? And the universe was like, they need self-love. That's the beginning of their journey. And I was like, no, don't want to do it. I was like categorically like, no, not interested. Don't want to talk about self-love. I don't want to teach that. That's lame. That's boring. Give me another answer. And the universe was like, no, sorry, that's the only answer you've got. You asked for it, you asked a question, you got the answer. And I was like, okay, fine. So normally when I receive an answer this sort of strongly, I do take notice and I do sit with it. So even though my reaction was a no and I was in resistance, I was like, okay, well, we'll sit with this for a bit. So I sat with it, and it really wasn't long before I was like, oh, okay, this feels good. This feels real good. So, and then suddenly it was in that moment that I sort of realized just how integral self-love had been on my journey towards sort of recovery, healing, growth. I've had a lot of mental health problems even before the abusive relationship, and you can imagine that relationship only just exacerbated them. So, and self-love was really the key to my healing journey and becoming, the sort of the person I am today. And I'm pretty happy with the person I am today, So I'm kind of glad for some of those experiences. And that's sort of what led me to create the self-love aspect in my business, which is now what I mostly focus on. And then I was living in Thailand. I've been living in between Thailand and the UK on and off for sort of 6-7 years. So I spend a bit of time there, a bit of time here, depending on, what my needs are, where I want to be, and what's calling me. And I was out in Thailand, and I saw another mutual contact of Laura and I's is Katie Carey, who is the organizer and the creator of the book that we're in, Entangled No More. So I saw her post come up about the book, and I've seen her posts come up often, as I'm sure you have, Laura. She comes up with all these opportunities, and I look at them and I think, oh, that's nice, and then I sort of carry on scrolling or get on with my life. But this one, the topic, what's the name of the topic? It's women who broke free from toxic relationships, who building an empire. And I was like, that is my jam. That is my thing. That is my story. That is my niche. Like I have something to say about this. I'd love to be a part of this. So contacted Katie, started writing my chapter. And in the process of writing my chapter on my abusive relationship, and basically the story I've just shared with you now, in that process of writing that story, I realized I really wanted to work with survivors of domestic abuse. And that was where I felt called to, which is why I've moved back to the UK, because I'm now volunteering and training with an organization called Solace Women's Aid, doing the domestic violence mentoring. So that's now a new aspect to my business. And I really want to work towards like group well-being facilitation in maybe refuges, or with in some form with survivors of domestic violence, because I believe there's a lot of healers and coaches out there that have been through trauma and think that because, okay, I've gone through trauma, I've learned all these lessons, I want to give these lessons back. And that's such a beautiful thing. But without the correct training on how to deal with people's trauma, I think it can be a little dangerous. So I realized I didn't have as much training as I needed to work with the types of people that I want to work with. So that's why I'm doing the volunteering work and the training, so that I can, create safe space for these women and for anyone else who I come across in my business that has been through trauma, and so many of us have. So that's my story. I hope it wasn't too long.
It wasn't too long. Well, so this is so interesting to me, because when you started out, when you were young and you started out searching, who am I, and went to the university, what were you studying?
I was studying wildlife conservation because I absolutely loved nature. Nature and the outdoors were the one place that I felt accepted, safe, not judged. I know there's that thing about the frequency of our heart being at the same frequency as nature, so it scientifically, calms us, relaxes us, and I just love everything about nature and animals. And at that point, I really didn't like people very much. I much preferred being around animals. So that's what I was studying, and it was a very, very healing course, actually, learning about nature and being out in it a lot as well.
So yeah, I think that's really interesting, and I think there are probably a lot of us that maybe feel that way, like we love our dogs more than we love people, maybe, or we love the animals so much, but I feel like that was probably a good basis for you to then go forward, and I'm sure you still connect with nature and you still do all these things, but also when you were after that and you were like, okay, well, who am I, and who am I really, and what am I here to do? What helped you to along that path to really find yourself and find what you wanted to do and who you were?
Well, I think it's quite important to note that I wasn't doing it overly consciously, right? So I think if you were to do something like that consciously, it would be a lot more profound. And so the fact that it was that profound and that potent without even, knowing I was doing it, it was just a case of I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what music I liked to listen to. I didn't know what clothes I liked to wear. I didn't know what food I liked to eat, because all my decisions had been made for me. And I was punished or whatever for making wrong choices, so choices became very difficult for me when I wasn't told, because I was scared of the consequences, right? So it was really a case of I'm just going to try everything. I'm just going to try everything on, different foods, clothes, styles, music, behaviors, versions of myself. I'm going to be a good girl. I'm going to be a rebel. I'm going to listen to heavy metal. I'm going to listen to punk and rock and pop and folk music and see what I like. I'm going to, eat Indian food and burgers and just really I just tried everything that I possibly could. I made a lot of mistakes along the way. I made a lot of faux pas and some bad choices, but I learned so many lessons from those choices, and they were my mistakes to make. So I was happy to have that freedom, back, and to try that. I think it also helps that. So when I went to university, I found a statistic that there was 40,000 students in my university town, and I was like, well, someone in those 40,000 people is going to like me, right? 40,000 people, I've got to make one friend at least. And then I realized that, well, if I was like, an inauthentic version of myself, then I would attract people that maybe weren't the right people. So it was sort of this desperation to be authentic, because I wanted to attract people that were going to be really good friends and not just superficial people that we ended up drifting apart and falling out. And my best friend to this day, who I'm the maid of honor at her wedding next year, we had bedrooms opposite our doors were opposite each other in our first year of uni, and I met her on day one, and we instantly fell in love with each other because we were both weird and traumatized, and we bonded over dark humor and and being a bit of a hot mess, really. So I think going back to your question, the answer really is just trying everything out to really learn who I was, so that when it came to someone being like, oh, do you want to do this or do you want to do that, I could with full integrity be like, no, I don't like that, or no, that doesn't suit me, or no, even just things like makeup or skincare products or shampoos and conditioners, like, my body doesn't respond well to that, so I'm going to buy this. Or foods, diets, I don't like to eat this kind of food because it makes me feel bloated or heavy, or this kind of food really, really energizes me and my body loves this kind of food. So it helped me, sort of give my body what it needed and wanted. I mean, don't get me wrong, this was years of trial and error. We're not just talking a few weeks of figuring things out. It was a long process, but it was fun to try everything out and figure out who I am.
There's so much about this that I love. First of all, when you're talking about like saying, I didn't know myself. I didn't know what I liked. I didn't know what I liked to eat or what clothes I liked. It reminds me of the movie Runaway Bride with Julia
Yeah.
Roberts when she's like she's told, oh, you like everything dependent on what man you're with.
Mm,
And she goes out and decides to try all the eggs and figures out, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like, and especially kind of at a young age for you to do that and to go through things and to say, no, what do I like and what I don't like. And then to be able, this is something that I'm really passionate about, is kind of what I call personal policies, is like to be able to say, no, this is me. I don't like that. I do like that. I don't want it. Like you said, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And you're maybe not going to be drug along to something that just because everybody's going. No, I don't like
yeah.
doing that. I'm not going to go.
Yeah.
But then there's also this level of, just learning all the things about yourself. I mean, to really and to accept and to want to people, I think there's a really a knowledge there for you to say, if I know who I am and if I'm being authentic, then I'll magnetize people kind of regardless. People might, I mean, there's probably people that are going to be like, oh no, she's too weird, quote unquote weird, right?
Yeah.
But there's probably a lot of people who just embrace that and go, oh, Bella, that's who Bella is, and we love her.
Yeah.
And I think that is such a great lesson for all of us to to embrace that, and because I think so many of us all the time are want to go along or want to give in, and who doesn't want to be liked? So you kind of go along and just say, oh yeah, sure, I'll go along with you to that, and you're having a miserable time. Well, guess what? When you're having a miserable time, nobody's gonna want to be around you, right? No, I don't want to
Yeah.
be around her, that wasn't fun. And it turns out it's because shouldn't have gone in the first place. So I love that. And then the other thing I want to talk about a bit. So you were, doing your coaching and all the things. And when you decide, and you said you've been back and forth to Thailand, between the UK and Thailand quite a bit, but what made you decide to go to Thailand for, and I'm saying this because because of seeing some of your journey on social media where you were like, oh, I'm packed up, I'm going to Thailand. More recently, this recent visit.
Yeah. So
What
what made me go?
what spurred you to decide
Well,
on that one?
actually, I had made the decision to go 18 months before I actually left, but but then COVID happened, So I had been back in the UK maybe two or 3 years, and I decided I wanted to go back to Thailand. And then COVID happened, so I was here an extra year and a half after that. So it was really just a waiting game for the entry process to Thailand was very strict. They weren't letting anyone in, and then it was a very expensive, lengthy quarantine process. And I was just keeping my eye on that, and then it suddenly became a lot easier and a lot cheaper. So I decided to make a break for it before everyone went back into lockdown or something. And yeah, I fancied a change of pace. England, particularly London, as you can imagine, any bit large city, it's a very fast paced lifestyle. And when I live in Thailand, I do spend a bit of time on the islands, but most of my time is actually spent in the far north, in the mountains near the border of Myanmar. So it's a very small town. There's no supermarkets. There's like a tiny hospital. You have to travel 3 hours for the nearest, big hospital or good dentist or, supermarket or cinema or anything like that. So we're really nestled away in the mountains. It's so peaceful. It's so slow and quiet and reflective and healing and restorative. But after a while, sometimes I miss the hustle and bustle of the fast-paced London or UK life, which is why I like the two and the balance. And it's part of what I discovered about myself throughout this, self-discovery process, was that I'm definitely a nature girl, as we've discussed. I love being in the countryside, but I also, have some quite high energy. I love to dance and to party and to rave, and I love festivals and I love all of that kind of stuff. And Thailand lacks a lot of that, particularly the music scene. There's far too much techno and trance over there, and not enough, good music, in my opinion. So I like having the mix, because then it gives me all of the opportunities to be all the versions of myself that I know I am and know I want to be. So that's why I sort of flick back and forth, and why I wanted to go out when I left, a year or so ago to spend that year there. It was just because I wanted some healing, some restoration, some quiet. And some nature, waterfalls around every corner. Who can argue with that?
Oh my goodness, it sounds amazing, and just, yeah, definitely restorative. And I find that for myself, where when I've been around people a lot, I like to just have my quiet time and just rejuvenate my energy. And it sounds like to me that that's a lot what you get there. But then when you are in the UK and in London, then you're able to do all the fun, not that Thailand doesn't sound like fun. It just sounds like fun in a different way, but you're able to
Yeah,
embrace the other side of you,
yeah.
and the peoply side of you, and the fun part of you. So when let's talk about, so after you decided, you saw the offer that Katie was putting out to have a chapter in her book, and you decided, hey, this is for me. I want to write about my experience and breaking free of the toxic relationship. How did that, I mean, you said that's what spurred you to come back and realize what you wanted, but did you just like, what happened? Was there something that happened, or did you just kind of realized, hey, I'd really like to help people who've experienced somewhat whatever I have?
So I just spent about 2 or 3 months on the island of Koh Phangan. And the island of Koh Phangan is a really, really crazy, intense place to be. First of all, it's built on like a bed of quartz crystal. So as you can imagine, everyone's energy is like, "Rah!" And it attracts a lot of people who need healing. It attracts a lot of people who need healing and who are healers, but also who need healing. And there's a lot of unsafe healing practices that go on that island. A lot of unsafe tantra, a lot of unsafe sexual healing, a lot of is it what I spoke about earlier, about a number of people who have experienced trauma, who have healed themselves and would like to give these gifts back to the world, but have no real safe practice experience themselves of how they can open people's trauma up, but they don't know how to deal with it themselves. And this was really eye-opening for me, and it made me, it made me look at my own practice and my own business and think, where am I doing this? How am I doing this? Am I doing this? How could I do this better? Because although I don't advertise myself as a trauma coach of any sorts, when you're working with people who need to love themselves more, it's obviously attracting people who have low self-worth. And often that comes from some degree of trauma. So it was a real mirror to my own practice to go, okay, how can I do better? So I was already in a place of thinking, okay, I need to do something within my own continued professional development to make sure that I am, you know, carrying out safe practice and that I'm being the best coach I can for my clients. And I don't think, you know, that we should just do one coaching certificate and maybe just one Reiki healing or something and then never do another training. I also don't believe that we should get all addicted to our qualifications like so many of us have done. But there's a level of care that I think we all need to uphold within, you know, the coaching, healing, therapeutic industry. And this was eye-opening to me. I was a bit of a place where I was like, okay, my business needs another evolution to it. Where are we going to up level to? Where are we going to go with this? So I'd actually decided to take a small step back from my business, not to stop it completely, but I wanted to let a bunch of things go to create the space to see what else wanted to come in. So this was a Sunday. I'd made this decision on the Sunday, and Katie's post was on the Monday. I saw the post on the Monday and I was like, okay, this is what wants to come in, right? This wants to come into my world. I was also looking at alternative ways of marketing than just being on social media all the time, because social media doesn't feel good to me. It's a bit draining, it's a bit heavy. So I like to find alternative networking ways, or being on podcasts and writing books and things, because being glued to social media is not an integrity for me. So I was looking for alternative methods anyway. So this popped up on my news feed. Instantly it hit me in a place of like, this is right, this is aligned. And I knew, because I'd made that space energetically in the business the day before. I was expecting it to take about 3 months. That's what I'd given it. I was like, I will surrender and release for 3 months. And then the next day I was back on it like, I know exactly what I need to do. It was incredible. So then the process of writing the story, obviously revisiting my own story. There were several drafts to my chapter. So the first draft was just for me, and it had a lot more of the gory details, and it was a lot less articulate in the way it was written, because it was a heart dump. You know, it was me dumping my heart out onto the screen, onto the paper, and working through this story in my head to see how it all fit together and how the story could benefit the reader. Because I believe that there's only a point to the gory details if it's actually explaining something and giving some kind of wisdom or insight. I don't think there's any need for us to all, you know, just bear the ins and outs and the details of our traumas if it's for no benefit to the reader themselves. So a lot of the details came out, and a lot of the insights replaced, you know, those details. And I just realized the juicy goodness in this journey that I'd been through, and these pillars that I'd learned. So there's these pillars I use on the sort of journey to self-mastery, which is, I call them my calm pillars. They're KALM. The K stands for know yourself. The A stands for accept yourself, the L stands for love yourself, and then the M stands for master yourself. And I believe that you cannot master yourself until you love yourself. You cannot love yourself until you accept yourself, and you cannot accept yourself until you know yourself. So I realized these were the stepping stones that I'd taken on my journey. And I think a real, juicy, wise guideposts, stepping stones to help people get to that place of self-mastery. I don't know if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or if anyone listening to this is familiar, but it's basically a triangle representing the needs of humans. And at the bottom we've got the physiological needs of food, water, shelter, sleep, things like that. And then as we go up to the top is self-actualization, and that is everything that we in the spiritual community are trying to do, you know, this enlightenment, this healing, all of this process. It's the self-mastery. But a lot of people try to go straight up there without doing the steps beforehand, and then wonder why they're hitting a brick wall. And it's like, well, there's a bit of work to do before you can actually get to the self-actualization and the self-mastery and the enlightenment and all of that stuff. So if you go straight into that level, you will be disappointed, and you'll fail, and then you'll be disappointed in yourself and wonder what's wrong with you. So doing the work beforehand, I think, is a necessary secret that a lot of people, a step that a lot of people seem to miss. I think I missed it at parts of my journey, and then had to retrace my steps.
Well, and that's the beauty of it, right? Like, you can, if you do like aim too high, you can always go back and fix it. But
Yeah.
I love that, because it's almost sounds like to me like standing at the bottom of the stairs and thinking you're going to leap, just like magically leap to the top of, you know, I'll get up there, I'll get to the landing. No, you're not going to get there. You really have to go step by step. It's not going to work. But I also am so just, I love the synchronicity of you making a decision. And we hear this a lot when people say, well, let me let go of this. Like, I mean, there are some people who want to just hang on and hang on. It's not really working, but I'm not ready to let it go yet, you know? And then there's this like, here you are saying, you know what? It isn't, you know, I am making space for something to come in, and then the synchronicity of boom, here you are. Oh, good for you, Bella. Here you are. Thanks for acknowledging it. And then I also want to go back to the you know, talking about writing your chapter in the book, because there is this level of, yeah, we're writing, at least I you know, the intention for us is to write our chapters to inspire others, so that they see our stories, and our stories hopefully help others to maybe see that, hey, you're not alone, or, you know, whatever it is, whatever the message that they are able to take from it. But there is such a journey, especially writing about these things for each of us as well. And, you know, I you know, asked my husband, we just went through a little roller coaster of emotions, you know, just getting to where we are, and the book's not out yet. So I love the, you know, your heart dump, and just like get it all out, get up. And yeah, we don't all have to hear, you know, all your details of what you experienced, but, you know, but yeah, to be able to reframe those and turn those into the lessons, the important things to get out in the world. But there's a healing level for you of revisiting it somehow, and writing it, and just really writing out all the stuff. And to me, I feel like I've done this not in a book per se, but I've done it just as exercises along my way, where you know, you're just like, there's a level of releasing that to the page somehow. And, you know, so with some of the things that I wrote, not only did it get released to the page, but it got released to the fire and to the universe outside.
Yeah.
So there is such a healing part of that is, you know, is incredible. And that's sort of the behind the scenes of writing and Entangled No More, you know, at least for the two of us, is that, yeah, this quite the healing journey, or maybe more, you know, aha moments for us, light bulb moments for those of us who wrote our chapters, and maybe a stepping, either, you know, like a stepping stone, like it was for you, to a new path of, you know, and realizing, I love that you realized that, okay, well, if I really want to help people with domestic violence, you know, help, let me find out, let me get a little more training under my belt, and know, you know, and maybe I'll ask you, was there some value in that, even for yourself, of realizing, okay, yeah, I can apply that to myself, some of the things that you're learning in dealing with people with domestic violence, to be able to help them?
I think perspective has definitely helped in terms of realizing just how far I've come, not just how far I've come, but also the gifts that have turned up in my life because of that tragedy, because of that trauma. And I by no means, wish trauma on anyone, but I do believe that a lot of trauma leaves. I think I wrote something in the chapter about a lot of trauma leaves gifts in the wake of the tragedy. And there are some traumas that leave no gifts behind. I'm not saying that there will be always a silver lining, but there are a lot of gifts that have come for me in my journey from that, and I'm looking forward to to be able to give them back. And it's also just realizing just realizing how far I've come, how strong I am, how much as women we have had to go through in history, because part of the training was to look at the timeline of women's rights and the rise of feminism and all of these things, and learning some of the statistics about around domestic violence. And some of these, like, I think one of the ones that stands out was learning that it wasn't until 1994 that rape became illegal within marriage. So before 1994, you could completely do whatever as a man, you could do whatever you wanted with your wife, and she had no say over it. You were literally his property. 1994. I mean, that's not even. I mean, that's 28 years ago or something. It's ridiculous. And I think there was another fact about I can't remember, it's something to do with female genital mutilation only becoming illegal very recently as well, which is also ridiculous. So I've learned a lot of horrifying facts about just how much we've had to endure as women. And I know that there are many minorities that have had to withstand a lot as well. And the women that this charity work with, we only work with women with multiple disadvantages. So we basically catch all the women that fall through the other charity nets. So we work with women who have physical disabilities, mental disabilities, who have insecure immigration status, homelessness, substance and alcohol misuse, children in care, all these kinds of disadvantages that just mean that no one else will help you. And you are really. We work with a lot of people who've been through trafficking and prostitution, and all sorts. So it's really put my experience into perspective. Also to remember that there's not a hierarchy of experience. Just because someone has been through a lot worse than you does not invalidate your experience. And there's no competition, there's no hierarchy, but it does help put my experience into perspective for sure.
Yeah, that is, I mean, incredible work that you're doing. And yeah, I love that you said that there's no hierarchy, that it's not like, it's not a competition, well, I experienced this. Yeah, well, I experienced this, and this, you are just helping everyone that you can that have multiple things. And that it probably is the case. I'm not really very well knowledgeable at all about the charities that can help women, but I would imagine there are more select things. Well, if you have experienced this, go here. If you have experience, it's almost like in my mind I'm seeing, like, get in this line. Okay, if you've experienced this, get in this line. But okay, if you've experienced multiple things, come to us. And that's just really amazing work that you're doing. So I think I can't think of anything else that I have questions for you. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners today?
Yeah, I think there was a couple of bits that I just wanted to touch on in terms of because we were talking about the surrendering and the releasing of my business and how powerful a shift happened for me. And I do just want to let people listening know that when those things like that don't happen to me all the time, right? It's not like, every day I'm like, I'm just going to surrender this thing and then magic happens, right? It takes work, it takes effort. It's not just like these things happen all the time, and if they're not happening to you, that you're broken, or you're not magical enough, or that you're not doing it right. But this time I fully, like, all my energy had released it. I hadn't just said, I'm just going to release it. Like, I completely and utterly energetically released it, to the point where I was happy to do the bare minimum in my business for 3 whole months, and to just deal with my current clients, to not try and get any more, to not be on social media, to not do anything, to just completely release it. I energetically, wholeheartedly done it. And that's why the magic happened, right? I've tried to do this before, and it didn't work, because it wasn't a wholehearted one. So I don't want, and I've sat there before listening to people talk about surrender and release and manifestation, and I roll my eyes and I'm like, screw you, this shit doesn't work for me. Like, and so I know it can be really annoying and frustrating to hear people talk about the easy manifestation that they do. And so I just wanted to touch on that. And I also wanted to touch on, like, self-love it's not easy, right? It's not just like taking a bubble bath with some roses and some candles and saying I am enough in the mirror to yourself. It's not these, sexy women on Instagram, with their I am enough post-its and things like that. That's not what self-love is. It's messy. It's getting out of bed in the morning even though you hate your life and you don't want to. You're loving yourself enough to get up, right? So there is so many different forms of self-love. It's different for everyone. And if someone had tried to talk to me about self-love when I was in the middle of my darkness, sort of like 10-15 years ago, I would have told them to F off, and I would have been like, your self-love means nothing here. I don't come to me with this. So if you're in that place, and you are in a really dark place and you can't even imagine loving yourself, just start off with getting to know yourself. Start off with making some choices, experimenting, and also make a commitment to yourself that you want to love yourself. Because you can say to yourself, I love myself as an affirmation, and then your inner critic is going, that's bullshit, that's bullshit, that's bullshit. You don't love yourself. You don't want to have that battle going on. But you're less likely to have that battle by saying, I want to love myself. I really, really want to love myself. I'm open and available to love myself. I really want this for myself in my life. Even though I don't feel it now, I want to be able to love myself. You can start off with that kind of a place, and then it will be easier, and the inner critic won't start going, this is BS. You don't love yourself. You're not enough. You're not good enough. You're a piece of shit. You want to avoid that. So then you go to the step beforehand, which is I want to feel like I'm enough. I want to feel good enough, because that's probably more true. And I just wanted to leave that kind of piece of little insight there for anyone who really, really struggles with this stuff and is not ready to dive headfirst into, all of the self-love and manifestation and all of that stuff. So yeah, that was my last little bit.
These are really important points, because everybody's journey is different. So when you are working towards something that you're trying to create in your life, so that to the first point you were talking about as far as manifesting, and the magic might not happen in that way, the way that it did for you, and you have more experience with this, and and you did, like, really, this is the point. I agree, that you have to really embrace it all like you did. But there's things that I have created or manifested in my life, and it's been, well, do you want this one? No, that's not quite a fit. Oh, but I really love this one. Yeah, but that's not really, so there's sometimes it's trying it on and it's not a fit, trying it on and it's not a fit. And maybe there's some frustration around it until you really do find, and the one that is going to be the fit. Like I'm thinking for me, I'm referring to like I have an art studio and I made offers on, well, three buildings, but I started with the one that I currently have and it didn't work out. And so we're like, okay, that's not working out. What else is available? Like, okay,
Yeah.
let me see the dessert tray, right? And it's like, no, I don't want. So then I made an offer on another building, and it was, nope, that one's not going to work out either. And I loved that building. I loved it. And it broke it. I don't want to say it broke my heart, but it little bit of a broken
Yeah.
piece, because I thought I could vision it, I could envision it, I could see it, I loved it, and it didn't work out. Tried one more building, and that didn't work out either. So then you're like, okay, well, where are we at? What's out there again? What's out there? Like, show me the dessert tray again, right? And it's like, okay, well, let's try this first building again. And I was really resistant to that. I was like, no, we tried that, it didn't work. And my husband was the one that said, well, let's think about this. What if we do this and this, maybe we can, make some changes here and there with it. And I was like, okay. But at that time too, part of what didn't work the first time was we couldn't come to an agreement with the sellers. Like, we're not going to
Okay.
buy the building if you can't buy.
Yeah.
So here we are, and it did work the last time. It did work. It's the building we ended up with. It's where my studio is. And now, hindsight, of course, it really is the best building for me. And when I drive by the one that broke my heart, I'm like, no, you know what? I can see why that wasn't quite the right fit for me. I can
Yeah.
see why I'm better where I am now. So
Oh,
yeah,
beautiful.
we don't always like, obviously we don't get maybe the big, rainbow at the end, and the clouds don't open up and the aha, like here it is, the path doesn't always go that way. It's awesome when it does. And I also, to your second point of self-love, is that again, everybody's, journey is different with that. And it can be a real struggle. And like from my experience as well, when, if somebody says, stand in the mirror and just tell yourself, I love you. And you're like, no, yeah, I could say that all day, but what good is it? So I love what you said about, okay, well, at least I want to try
Yeah.
to. And, so I love these points that you made. They're so valuable. And again, everybody's journey is different. It's easy, it's one thing to sit here having made, like you said, to have made the journey and to be where you are, but this took years, and regardless, we're all still evolving. So
Mhm.
it's, every day is not gonna again be magical, and the rainbows aren't necessarily gonna shine on our house every day. So I love that you said that, but to at least, and also to honor like the days when you do, like, okay, I feel like crap today. Okay, good for, okay, you feel like crap today.
Yeah.
You don't just put that aside, feel it. If that's what you need to feel today, feel it. Don't just say, no, I can't feel crappy today. I can't feel sad today. No, you can. Every day again isn't magical. So we're all evolving, and it's all a journey. And I think those are such valuable points that you made. Really important points. And we're all still trying every day to do what we
Yeah.
do.
It's a
And
continual journey. Healing is a continual journey. Self-love is a continual journey. Personal development is a continual journey. You don't, you don't just get to a point where like, I love myself, so now I can just stop, or I'm healed, so now I can just stop. Let's be proactive instead of reactive about these things, and just weave them into your everyday life for the rest of your life, and make it a commitment to yourself. And if some days you fall off the path and you forget for several days or weeks or months, don't be afraid to get back up and try again and to keep going.
Oh, it's beautiful. And this is also part of why this podcast is A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to My Life, because sometimes we go sideways, and let's deal with it when we do, and try to do, how do we deal with it? And yeah, sometimes things don't go the way we think they're going to go, and those are the funny things that happen. And how do we work through them? And so, yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for all your wisdom today, and for joining me. I love your story. I love your insights. Just beautiful. I love the work that you're doing. Thank you for that. And thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And then also, I obviously want to thank our listeners for joining us. Thank you for listening to A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to My Life podcast. For more information, visit my website at www.lauramuirhead.com.